really excited for this. As you guys know, Des was even talking about it a little bit. This being a rematch from the Swiss stage there as well, right? Where Aussie and Friends last time took it 2-1. And the fact that we get to see 2 repeat maps from that series as well, where one Icebox went over to the side of Ghost Gaming, and then the Sunset there, or sorry, yeah. Icebox went over the side of Ghost Gaming, and then it was Sunset for Aussie and Friends. And to kick things off here with a Haven that we didn't get to see last time around, especially with Aussie and Friends going back to the composition that they're running a little bit earlier on in the competition, leaning away from that ISO and Yoru. And I think just having a little bit more of that support to set Marceline up here.
Yeah, there's a level of like, go with what's comfortable at this stage. Like, this is a big moment for both these two teams to try to have a chance to get into a lower final, maybe surprise the world, and have a chance at a Grands. As we get into the pistol, an immediate hit over towards C for Aussie and Friends, and it's pretty much free and wide open. Defense is going to have to rotate late to get on over here for the retake.
Yeah, but the thing is, there's just going to be so much utility that's saved here for Ghost into these retake situations, right? And you can see Aussie and Friends playing for that site control here into the post plant, and nice utility coming out with the Paranoia to trade.
Well, Bunny's able to find the first two. Couple of missed shots there from AF's post plant. And D on top of the site does well for one of the right clicks. Jazzy with the follow-up. And it gets just down to a 1v1. Riv v Miara. And this is one of those that, again, advantage to Riv. Start cover. Oh, and playing just a little bit of a toggle, and then a super wide swing from Miara has the 1v1 win going to Ghost.
I mean, nicely done to just be able to catch Riv off guard there, and things got a little bit dicey on site. That scrappy fight back and forth. There was so much utility for the re-entry there on the side of Ghost as well, with the flashes coming in from Bunny B. Miara didn't even have to expend that recon right out the gate, instead relying on that owl drone to kick things off. And it was a nice delay though. You see Jazzykins manages to even get one with that aftershock there as well. And it's been, again, like the Dust talking about it, so weird to see Jazzy on the initiator. She makes it look great though, and it's so interesting to see also like that dichotomy here for Aussie and Friends, the ability to kind of swap between those roles depending on what comps they want to use to maybe catch the opponents off guard. And who knows, I mean, Ghost could have been preparing for that mirror matchup going into today, but something that we have to keep an eye out on here for Ghost is you already see that A main push being worked by both the duelists. This is something that they do like to do on Haven. It's typically how you play this Yoru comp as well, that push and pull to go for that early lobby control.
Okay. And just a little bit of a push up down A long. Outlaw does its job perfectly. Maybe a chance for more here. Just comes down to it. Does Bunny protect the close corner where Riv is? No scope isn't going to hit. Gate crash gets back to safety. In the meantime, though, look over towards C. Yeah, Marceline doing a nice job just trying to avoid some of the pressure by moving the defense around just a touch, but Ghost deal with it nicely, and now it's just down to Lydia for the 1v4.
Yeah, not too much Lid's going to be able to do in this scenario, but overall, that's something that we're going to have to keep an eye out for, right? Is especially Bunny B going for those aggressive angles towards lobby, just getting a little bit of that information for the side of Ghost Gaming to assist with some of these reads across the map. And if it's not going to be A lobby, she also loves to push down mid. So just that push and pull that we're going to have to keep an eye out here on the side of Ghost. And then it's that ability to try and funnel them into aerial setups that are usually leaning over towards that C site. But this is where things get a little bit more interesting for Aussie and Friends.
No, it really does. I mean, yeah, coming off of the bonus here, it's going to be a pretty formidable one with 4 players surviving, but you're absolutely right. This will be our first look to see what exactly Aussie and Friends have in store for us with full rifle purchases. Just one member not able to afford the full armor. That's on Marceline, who's likely going to be the entry person anyway, so not really much gain or loss there. Bunny B going to go for an aggressive angle over through Sewer. Able to see the shoulder of Riv, but does not connect. Owl drone just to make sure that Slandy can keep the pressure on, but there is an undercut that's tossed early, and AF has to just hold back to touch.
Comfortable stack here for Ghost Gaming, though. And we've seen what Bunny B can do with the Bucky. Like, we actually, it might be a bonus, but you can't necessarily count them out just yet. And Aussie and Friends knowing that they push them off of that A angle is just going to force out a little bit of that re-clear util out from Miara as well. With that drone, they cut noise and look to regroup.
Well, that's the thing, is that Owl drone off the table. Bunny B is going to feel very well positioned with this Bucky over through Sewer. Miara, can keep in mind, has the Vandal. Good reveal just as soon as the fault line comes through. Shock starts to follow up. Knows that there's a 1v1 on top of the site, but Marceline so to beat them with the punch. Bunny B now with the Bucky, able to find one, but can't get the reset before the final punch comes out. And Marceline just takes over and the front side of A, leaving Aerial to sit back and, well, play with 1 HP as that shock dart lands right in between her feet.
Yeah, it's just maybe a little bit of damage looking to be done here for Aerial, but overall, a very comfortable buy round here coming out from AF, and I think that what works so nicely too is once they lose some of that extremity control on the side of Ghost Gaming, Aussie and Friends definitely have a lot more utility to fight back into that site with Jazzykin's hit on that breach. Definitely something that we're going to have to keep an eye out with how Aussie and Friends are going to look to pull out some of that defender-sided utility a little bit earlier on and force those re-clears as well, and then go for those contact plays to close.
Yeah, that's all good shouts. It is going to be this little battle, especially with the compositions being so different, of trying to get them as low as possible on that opening utility, because I think especially when you look at it from Aussie and Friends' perspective, you've got the ability to recharge a lot more than what Ghost Gaming is going to have the ability to do. I mean, outside of smokes and recon bolts, there's really not much else that you're looking at for Ghost Gaming defensively. So Aussie and Friends can keep this upward tempo in the first 30 seconds, try to force some of that util, and then hit those late round executes that we've seen kind of over the course of what this comp has done in the past. So Ghost Gaming going to step up once again at A-Long with their full purchase. 3 members, large recon bolt is on the way in. Decoy set first, but Lydia is good for finding the actual member behind that decoy, and it'll be a 5v4 early.
Yeah, but look at this walk down from Kataris here as well. She's able to get a lot of great information for the side of Ghost Gaming. Doesn't hear anything. Allows a much steadier hold across the rest of the map. There's the drone going through that's going to be heard here by Aerial as well. And this is a great position that we're going to have to keep an eye out here for Kataris if AF do opt for that garage push, but it's not going to be the case whatsoever.
Yeah, this is a big 1v multiple potentially here for Kataris. Slandy, Riv, the first one's up. Timing of this peak is everything. Kataris is going to see exactly what they need to. Start cover down, but doesn't wait for it to blossom. So Slandy's going to find the elimination, and now you're off to the races towards C.
Aerial, it might be able to get something off the trip here, but not being able to pull. Play for it. Still goes for the swing anyways. Instead of playing that numbers, takes a bit of a risk. That's something that we have to keep an eye out here for Ghost Gaming as well. Is that they do like to go for a lot of those risky plays.
2v4 situation. Miara is 1 away from Hunter's Fury, but with the time starting to tick on this defuse, it's going to have to be something probably pretty clear-cut. Tap, contingency, that's going to be enough to at least get 1, but yeah, I was going to say, Miara, do you really want to commit into this 1v3? May give it one more shoulder check, and as they do, Slandy's able to find 3 in the round and tie us up at 2 apiece.
I like the protocoling coming out from Aussie and Friends, especially that early brick smoke that we see consistently going over towards A-Long, just denying that early peak information and forcing out that earlier utility to be called out from Bunny Beach, trying to push past that smoke, because that's a big part of the overall macro game plan for Ghost Gaming on the defensive side, is trying to get that A-lobby information a little bit earlier into the round. And AF are doing really well to condition them to force that utility out early on.
Yeah, I mean, you set it up perfectly, Ash. It's literally, that's the story that's being written round by round now at the moment. This walk down at A-Long continues to be at least a dictated measure from Ghost. It just really isn't finding the success that I think you're building in the playbook. Because this is exactly right. I mean, you know you've got a light buy here if you're AF going into this Ghost Gaming defense. So you get a read that there's a walk down. It's probably not just one member through A. So let's set up our utility. Get a quick little check to make sure no one's around the corners of the Owl Drone, and let's just burst on with numbers towards C.
It's going to be a full retake as well. The thing is, that camera over towards mid that we constantly see Riv throwing down as well is unchecked. Like almost every single round so far, I think. And it just provides also so much of that information. And it makes it a lot easier to re-clear into that mid and get that read on that.
Miara, just misses an opportunity there to put a little bit of early punish onto this AF attack. But with traps set towards A-Long and C-Long, this has got the buildings towards something through garage. But no, instead it's going to be another stack up. They're going to go try to challenge Benedict's on just this snipe. And wow, nice headshot right at the get-go. I was going to say, there is no more undercut available, but now a kill contract could be available. And it is going to go right into the double tap. Trying to see if they can find maybe one more. Gets a body shot. Then the no-scope comes through as Aerial provides. And Ghost Gaming are standing tall with now a little bit of support as the Hunter's Fury gets called in. But Riv off the pinch. Comes back in, finds one. Reveal is good for more. And with a prediction on the backsided play towards the defensive spawn is good. But not able to connect. And Slandy will run out of time to get this planted, so it's just down to what damage you can find after the round, but it's not going to be much. Ghost Gaming pull off a Thrifty, and now they're up 3-2.
That whole round was Vanitas as well. Like, the play coming out there was so good. Imperative to get that initial pick with the Marshall as well, because you saw the rest of Ghost Gaming. Everyone made that mad dash over towards that A site, and this is the power of being able to use that ISO shield, right? Give that extra opportunity of life to come through, and just really nicely done with the rest of the team coming to flood back in. Now, we do see Rolling Thunder is available here for Aussie and friends. Instead, this time around, it's going to be that mid walk that we've said that we also have to keep an eye out here for Bunny B.
Just changing up the looks here for Ghost Gaming. I really appreciate it. Especially with this deep dimensional drift, you're going to get a lot of information, and the defense is going to love what they're seeing here. Rolling Thunder called in, though, for the attack. Aussie and friends, they make their way on. Paranoia in the mix. Vanitas able to come back over, reset the double tap, and Ghost Gaming have them completely entrapped on A long. But maybe a window, maybe an opportunity here, as Marceline's able to find their way into A, and now it's just down to Vanitas for the 1v2. The double tap about to expire. Wants to try to go quickly to see if they can get the reset, but it's going to lose the opportunity. Flash on the way forward. AF going to exit, and Vanitas is going to know this, but how do you chail this?
I mean, the contingency is really nice to buy that time to get that half, and sticking it the entire way through too. Not expecting it. The Red Bull clutch to come in here from Vanitas. They expected that they had probably gotten off the spike off the back of that fault line, anticipating that push, but so much confidence in that ISO utility to be that delay and provide the covering.
That's unbelievable gusto from Vanitas, a 1v2 Red Bull clutch. And one that I was initially, when I started calling, I was just like, I'm so surprised that AF are going to put themselves outside of the spike. Not just off the spike, but off the site completely. It's just so much of a one-dimensional angle. Unless you're going to threaten through heaven for that post plant, it just feels a little bit lopsided, and they get punished for that decision. Now you've got Blades out, though, quickly, as Marcelina and the rest of AF are trying to make up for their mistakes.
Yeah, but Undercut's just going to shut the Blades down, and that's a shorty in hand. Marcelina now stuck in the corner.
What is this crosshair?
It's an Among Us crosshair, man.
I didn't want to say it earlier, but it had me scratching my head a little bit. So Marceline will shake off the suppression back into the knives, and how about that? Just blindsided as it's just a walk down A long again, and Ghost Gaming are really dictating the tempo of this half.
That's just what they've been so good at. It's getting those reads.
No charges.
Double tap.
That is a bold teleport.
Yeah, but you've got the numbers, you've got the presence around the site, but it is a big button, I cannot lie. Riv is able to find two, and you still have the spike outside of B main. Slandy a little bit of trouble. Riv trying to follow up. The decoy. Oh, it may have just soaked up enough shots to keep the play alive, and then Bunny is able to find the last one in the corner. Riv provided an opportunity, but could not capitalize, and that was a very, very efficient decoy.
Ghost Gaming really finding their groove now on defense. This is the half that they're most comfortable here on Haven. They've started on Haven every single time we've seen them, or on defense on every single time we've seen them on Haven. And it has like, what, I think like a 75% win rate for them, which is just insane. And again, it comes down to that push and pull. The fact that they're willing to take these risks in those early engagements and how well Bunny B gets set up for those as well. That whole round came down to like a lot of sound baiting from Vanitas for the rest of the team to get into prime positioning to find those trades. And of course, it makes sense that we're seeing this Aussie and Friends timeout, right? They were protocoling really nicely over towards Zaylong, and since then, Ghost Gaming have found answers to find holes elsewhere.
So I guess the question now becomes, what do you talk about here if you're Aussie and Friends? Because I think the biggest culprits towards how this offensive half has gone awry has large. The A long play is now starting to find success. I know about, flip-flopping a little bit after round 3, round 4. It didn't look like Ghost Gaming were finding the success that they had measured up on that A long pushdown. That's now started to find tremendous. And honestly, Ghost Gaming are playing really well on both extremities of the map. So do you try to just over-invest early utility to win those angles back, or do you take your efforts elsewhere? And I think that's the biggest question right now if you're Aussie and Friends.
I think it's also keeping an eye on that short positioning as well, right? That's part of the success that we've seen is the short position hasn't been super passive every single round, and now we're finally getting that mid camera back up as well. There was like a round or two where that was missing, and it made a little bit more difficult for Aussie and friends to get that read on if there was any potential mid walk down coming in for some sort of sandwich. And across the map, Bunny B just able to shut down Lydia. A tough look here for Aussie and friends off the back of a timeout where their smokes are gone so early into the round.
Yeah, that's so key, that the fact that their smokes and their paranoia for that matter is also gone. So you really don't have anything besides just the quick flashes of Jazzykins, who does give you one. Bunny in the corner, avoids the first flash, but cannot avoid the aim of Riv. Miara, backside of the site, waiting for help to show up, and it is starting to get here, but Katars can only really do so much. And that will be a flood for AF that works. And I guess that's one answer. Don't play around the map, just hit it hard and hit it fast. Aerial, last one to try to make something happen. 1v2 is a high-low setup inside of Hell. And this is going to be one of those moments that either Reddit clip-worthy or a very casual win. And it's Reddit clip-worthy! Oh, no, they line up and Ariel's able to find the transfer to secure another Red Bull 1v2 clutch for Ghost.
Such an important round for Aussie and friends to win there as well. That Red Bull clutch is going to hurt the bank for the attackers. It's going to be hard to get that buy through. Likely going to see some sort of like semi-eco coming in. Actually, able to force up with the additional credits that you end up getting after that round, the sequential round losses, if you will. But just having enough at the end of the day, we'll sacrifice some shields for it, a little bit of utility for it to ensure that that can come in. But man, things are starting to get dicey. Every single round counting so much, and Ghost Gaming, they have so many ultimates to work with now too.
This round here, I should say, completely determines how dominant this first half is going to be for Ghost Gaming. Flash to the backside of the side, Aerial will stay pretty much alive. Decoy once again doing its job, but Bunny will still fall. So now it's just down to what can Aerial provide in terms of an island hold as the offense is going to back away and really stretch this defense out.
And the thing is, and you've also got some of that presence waiting outside of A lobby, right? With Riv and Lydia anticipating maybe some sort of push. And with the mid camera, they know that the B walkdown hasn't occurred yet either. It's just about waiting for those numbers and potentially hoping that Slandy can pull some more rotations over towards the C site with this OVA utility. A little bit of run up happening here as well, taking down those trips here that's been set up by Aerial. Yeah. The rest of the team looks to contact A.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of, hey, look at us, we're still hitting C. Just kidding. But how big could this be for Vanitas?
That's the
if
timing.
You can find the isolated 1v1, then you've got your kill contract from the backside of the site. There is a lot of opportunity here for Ghost Gaming in a 4v5. Just comes down to the timing of this play, and you can see it on the minimap. It's all about who sees who first. Vanitas shuts, but the shot too clean for Slandy, and now it's a 5v3 post plant where you've got Kataris just on a judge.
She was so aware of it as well. You know, the rest of the team comfortable here, right? You've got the Rolling Thunder available to delay that push if they really need it. Aftershock can be expended first to deny a bit of time on that CT retake. Just cycle it through.
Well, Ghosts are gonna try to give this a go here. Arrow dropping from heaven, not able to find anything, and then yeah, the judge at that range, mere marshmallows. As Miara will find one and then concede the rest of the round out to get Aussie and friends their third. And I just kind of want to go back to, you know, post-timeout conversations for Aussie and friends. Something that Ghost Gaming is doing really nicely of. We kind of saw it after the timeout. Aussie and friends throwing down the dark cover, the early recon, the early fault line towards A-Long. And as soon as you get the comm from the defender at A-Long that, hey, look, they're throwing all their utility here, then you get that walk down by Bunny B. And that looked like something that they were trying to do a little bit again here with that decoy. Try to show some force, maybe catch an early elimination, and then push up through A-Long. But this time AF find their first blood, and their numbers rule the day.
It's looking good. It's looking good for Aussie and friends. The adjustments needed. Those ultimates that we've talked about before are also still yet to be expended in the last couple of rounds as well. So still being able to save those going forward, and Rolling Thunder with that contact play wasn't necessary into the post plant. Can Bunny get one here first though? That's the hero rifle. It'll be huge to actually have that fall back onto site as well, so it can be recovered.
Well, A-Crash sends it all the way back over towards A-Link. And Aussie and friends, so again, just we'll send a little bit of utility. See if we can keep this defense on their heels a touch.
My ult is ready.
And then make our play. Hunter's Fury going to be earned off that orb collected through C long, and it looks like that's going to be enough for AF just to commit on in. Aerial inside their own cyber trap, trying to just stay alive, see if they can catch this offense by surprise. Good flash on the backside for Bunny B, but the weapons are just not there. And Aussie and friends will tee up and knock it out of the park here in round 10, looking good for their fourth.
Yeah, this should be a cut and dry round here for Aussie and friends. Things have to go extremely wrong for Ghost to win out this 2v5.
May as well give it a go, because why not? It's going to be a flawless round for Aussie and friends. So good little bounce back here in the last couple of the rounds, only dropping 1 life in the last 2. And now they've got a couple of key ultimates of their own to work with. Still working on that Rolling Thunder, the Hunter's Fury as well. Very pivotal towards how these next 2 rounds could go.
I think a lot of these rounds we're also seeing earlier hits coming out from Aussie and friends. Sure, this is an eco round that they end up with hard hitting C on, but it's also just generally understanding that they can out-util this team. With how spread apart they have to be on the defense, that breach is going to do so much work when it comes down to a lot of that crowd control, the flashes that are going to come through. A lot less you can reply with.
Well, could be a contact play here, and ooh, I don't know if Marceline was seen on that little jump peek by Vanitas. Dual contract still at the ready. Dimensional drift also something that could be used here for Bunny B with the Bucky in play. Paranoia gets cut across the map through B, but GHST is in a little bit of trouble of their own. Aerial now rotating over, trying to get the help in before Lydia can get the plant. Kill contract comes out. Lydia gets a little bit of space with the teleport, but is so weak. And it's going to really just fall into what Riv can do with Lydia now. And Lydia's going to sacrifice themselves by playing forward. And Riv, who's had a couple of individual moments, will have none here. So good response for Ghost. 6-4 the count.
Honestly, kind of surprised that the spike was stuck there, honestly. I think
it's
just
not the same thing.
Yeah, I think like you just aren't expecting like as fast of a flood as what Ghost Gaming was gonna pull out of the table. But 1 more round left into this half here, right? Both these teams looking generally comfortable when it comes down to that buy. But again, the cycling of the ultimates it hasn't really been super necessary for Ghost to rip any of them, so they go into this next round super comfortably. Bossy and friends, they themselves also have some 2 huge ults that they can look to rely on, especially if you want to try and combine that Rolling Thunder with the Hunter's Fury to cover so much ground. You can catch, if you end up going for that A execution, you can catch the players leaving the A sites on defense and try and catch them with that Hunter's Fury, and there's a lot of potential there.
Well, we're trying to combine the Dimensional Drift with the Hunter's Fury. Good reveal coming through, but Ghost not really able to find much in terms of the connection to the Hunter's Fury, so Bunny B will just do it themselves, and wow. Almost an opportunity to get a couple more, but the flashpoint on the counter has Vanitas just trying to hold their ground, but it's just a pinstripe kill feed. Back and forth we go. We've got an early 2v2. And honestly, all those key ultimates that we were looking forward to seeing are not going to be in play because they're all down and out of this round.
Oh, I mean, Ghost had a great call coming out from Bunny B there for the set play at the beginning of the round, right? Understanding that if they were going to go for that A pop, they can get ahead of the play and get a little bit more aggressive to not allow Aussie and friends to comfortably set up in that regard and not give that opportunity through. And now in this 2v2... mirror 2v2 at that as well. Both trips still up on the C site at that.
This is going to be a messy one. You do have a paranoia here for GHST. Just comes down to where do you want to spend it. Once again, Aussie and friends lining up just a touch. A little bit of information there to work with. Trigger the sound cue. See if you can catch out maybe a little bit of spam. But no, nothing yet. Time running out. Not going to be enough to get another dark cover. Paranoia cut over towards C long, but the high-low setup for Aussie and friends will work out in the corner. So a 7-5 half, but keep in mind, 2 different 1v2 Red Bull clutches for Ghost Gaming could have us looking at the same tally the other direction, though.
Oh, it definitely could. Man, I really think that there was just a lot of confidence coming out from Aerial and thinking, okay, surely if they cross backside, they were gonna like shoot that funky trip, even though they could fully walk under it, and just doesn't even consider to like look over towards backside there. But this pistol round, like you were saying, could be huge for Aussie and friends to try and tie things up early on. And then it's all about what the approach is going to be here for Ghost Gaming on the attacking side as well. We know that they do love this mid control, trying to disrupt these Cypher setups, poke into garage, see if there is going to be a trip there, and disarm that passive information a bit earlier into the round.
Same things kind of apply, though, for Aussie and friends when it comes to trying to put a little bit of early stress maybe onto Ghost Gaming just to see if they can catch something out that they are going to need for these executes that are, I mean, I don't want to make it sound like they're predictable, but you know what you're going to get in terms of Vanadis and Bunny playing together. So those are things to keep an eye out later on. Riv try to find some space to work with over at C. Able to utilize the smoke, and then just a little bit of spam to the direct cover will work out nicely, but it's an opening 1-for-1 exchange. Reveal coming through a little bit later. Jazzy trying to follow up on it, but cannot connect with the classic. So Ghost Gaming with the numbers. 4v2 situation, and Riv not able to do too much from inside the dark cover. Neither will Slandy on the exterior of it, and it'll be an 8-5 Ghost Gaming pistol win.
Solid pistol round. I mean, Ghost Gaming, they know they just have to pause at front sight, expecting maybe a bit of a flood to come through, not going to rush to push into those smokes, and just the awareness there to take a breather for a moment, right? And you even have that utility trying to like re-clear into backside as well, and just looking to isolate these players on an island, really play that mob mentality, if you will, with those fights that they were looking to take here, but. 4 stack here on the A site from Aussie and Friends. Keeping it quiet for now, seeing if they can get Ghost to walk into their waiting arms.
Yeah, Slandy will also get a little bit frisky and find the orb at A long and beat the timing of this peek from Bunny B. So don't rule out the power of the classic right click in that corner.
Yeah.
And more importantly, Aussie and Friends, with this contact play being so far ahead. Whoa, hey, how are you? That they can just kind of rotate over. Undercut going to come through. Really good fault line sent out by Jazzy Kids to allow Slandy to catch another. So numbers will be to the advantage of Aussie and Friends. But yeah, Vanadis is going to show off their circus skills and juggle these weapons a little bit further away.
Just make it a little bit difficult, more difficult to try and pick that up. Still got a camera over towards this B site though, so not going to be a free walk-in that Ariel was necessarily hoping for. Here's that on the left-hand side, just hoping to catch some sort of rotation. Aussie and Friends very aware of it though. You see Lydia looking for the rotate all the way through spawn instead of looking to cut through B. Now it's all about playing that numbers advantage. There's still a world where Aussie and Friends can take this round.
30 seconds left.
Maybe a nice paranoia here for Kataris at the very least though.
Yeah, the problem though here, Ash, is that it's still classics and a Bucky.
Yeah,
and I think even if Ghost Gaming don't know about the Bucky, you play the post plan at long range, exactly. So it's a very successful idea, very efficient idea. But Ghost, again, behind this smoke, do have to commit forward to make sure no one hops on for an early defuse. Riv giving him a workout, but it's Vanadis for 4. And the anti-eco round comes through with technically a 1v1 clutch, if you want to call it that, for Ghost Gaming.
Yeah, but with the buy that they had coming in from last round as well, they're going to invest into a couple of rifles now into the bonus, and there's opportunity to get that kill contract up here for Vanadis too. Could go for that C-Long or try and get that ISO ultimate online, and if possible, ideally probably look to take Riv out of that positioning, but either way, should be able to land it on at least a single player just to deplete the defensive forces for the beginning of this round.
Oh, we might get some fireworks here early. Stinger, Sheriff, a couple of rifles coming through. Kill contract is immediately sent out. Jazz able to get one through the dark cover. Oh, and then gets a read that Bunny Boy is playing inside the dark cover with the Stinger. Just avoids the pre-fire spam. And after the ISO 1v1 goes the way of Aussie and Friends' defense, it's just down to what Ariel and Miara could do. And again, it just doesn't seem like there's a such thing as a lost round right now for Ghost Gaming, continuing to put together kills, and now they're in a 2v3, with Ariel still in a good spot to possibly find more, but the trade is in, and it's down to BR for the 1v2.
And Ghost Gaming have been so good in these clutch situations as well. It feels like any of these players is capable of stepping up in that numbers disadvantage, taking a slight off angle with the hop up on towards this box in hell. Still 2 flashes.
Here comes the play.
Enemy remaining.
First one good for ER. Sees the information on the other. There's the flash counter action, and whoa, for a moment, I think we all went there. ER had a couple of good centering shots, but Jazzy just a little bit too wide of the peak, ends up able to find the kill. And Aussie and Friends will get on the board here for 6.
Expensive round, but a necessary one for Aussie and Friends to win, to deny the double digits to Ghost Gaming early on. And, you know, a little bit of body shooting for the mental, I guess, going into the next round. Yeah, of course. But I think what's nice here is the counter utility that we saw coming out from Aussie and Friends on this initial C long push as well, right? Both players managed to dodge that kill contract, and then Jazzy single-handedly with that fall lane is able to like fully slow that rush that the rest of Ghost Gaming were amping up for off the back of Bandit hoping to pick somebody up with that ISO ultimate. Now into this round. Different look here. Gonna do a little bit more poking again over towards this garage position, constantly looking to try and deny this trip of that early information, right, and break it a bit earlier into the round.
Aldrone will be limited to this information on the offensive side by that trap wire inside a garage, but it does allow Bunny B to step in freely. Eyes on for Jazzykins. Catches the shoulder of Bunny B, so information now known, and Ghost Gaming say, that's fine. We'll let them be worried about garage while we set up something over towards A long.
Yeah, the thing is, with the drone being expended here already, no one's going to have that ability to clear short, right? And that's why you're going to see the very late position coming out from Aerial. It's going to be contingent on the rest of the team being able to be that distraction factor on site, maybe even pinch towards short, but the rest of Aussie and Friends also put their way towards A.
Defense on site has to provide elimination, so that way Marsley doesn't have to come back to the site, and they do exactly what's required of them. But in the end, it is still a 1v2 as Lydia's the last one left alive. Ghost Gaming convincing on this attack, at least convincing enough. And for Lydia with an outlaw, there will be weapons on the ground as they make their way onto site.
But you do have
so many angles you have to clear.
Not just that, Hunter's Fury here as well. You can see Miara is playing for that win condition into this round, just guaranteeing, okay, if one of us does fall, we do have this ultimate to fall back on. It's actually going to get used right off the rip. It misses.
Hello?
Second one connects,
you can hold
but
this?
No way.
My goodness.
There is no way.
No way.
Dude. The first one missing there to grant Lydia a Red Bull clutch is actually insane.
I cannot believe what we just witnessed. How many of those types of clutch ups are we going to have? Where Lydia's just like, oh, you're going to miss the first one. I know I've got the time. And maybe a little bit of blessed timing because Miara doesn't send out the second Hunter's Fury immediately. It waits maybe a little bit too long, because if you send that out a little bit sooner, you get the info and then you get the elimination before the defuse. But a critical misstep, and now it's just a 2-round deficit. Marceline looking to get a little bit more aggressive and say, all right, we'll take the fight to you early, try to brawl this one out. Spy cam, ooh, gets mostly avoided, but the Guardian shot doesn't hit. Now the contingency makes its way in, and with that, so do Ghost Gaming, and they find the first 2 eliminations they need.
They're just so good at these site swarms, especially towards that A site, coming at you from all angles and ensuring that they're helping those short players clear through that short defense as well.
Yeah, Lydia trying to fight back, but only catches one. Riv, still pack a punch here. Wow, okay, hold on a second. Down to just a 1v1. Huge advantage in the health pool for Keteris, plus the weapon is the Vandal into the Bulldog, and yep, that's what you worry about. A one-tap headshot for Keteris is good, and Ghost Gaming will get to double digits.
A little too close for comfort, though. Like, that's a 1v3 situation that you're looking at, but that's kind of also what we saw in Ghost Gaming's matchup up against YFPX just earlier this week, is the fact that they have that, or last weekend, they have this tendency to do a little bit of cooling, a little bit of overheating. Very similar to Envy, if anyone has been watching Challengers, where they will just go for those engagements and those fights when it's not necessary, when they are up in numbers, and somehow still able to peel it back at the end of the day. But man, it does make your heart beat a little bit.
I'll say. That's been this entire map. Every round has been one that gets the blood pumping in a little bit. Flighty just going blindly with the Hunter's Fury down C long. Doesn't connect on too much, and Ghost Gaming will feel pretty successful in their ability to pull that out early. And with weapons advantage, now it's just bulls on parade over towards A.
Nice counter flash coming out at the very least to buy a little bit more time.
Oof. The last thing you needed if you're Marceline is to see Vanadis with the double tap up. And we'll be able to get the reset off of that. Again, a pretty anticlimactic round just based on the arsenal advantage that Ghost Gaming had. And Riv will maybe look for an exit or two, or just to sacrifice their life to the spike. as Ghost will get to 11.
Yeah, just hoping for an exit pick. I mean, that tripwire was sealed and whatnot. But now for Aussie and Friends, it's a question of, okay, how are we going to see them approach the next round of defense after they have this buy up? I feel like the big thing that you look at here is how passively they're playing Haven, which is something you can't really afford on these 3-site maps, right? Yeah, having to play a little bit more of that push and pull. And that being on the shoulders of Marceline and on the shoulders of Jazzykins and Slandy to be able to set her up as well, is going for those earlier engagements, getting a bit of that information, trying some of those walkdowns supported by that utility in the initiators. Otherwise, it's been a lot of, okay, turtling on site, Ghost Gaming, just looking to swarm and like utility dump as much as possible. We saw the ideas of some trap plays like coming out as well, but I feels like Ghost Gaming have had a lot of freedom when it comes down to the rotations that they can't find here on Haven.
Yeah, that's again, I love that recap because it really has been in a lot of ways kind of, you know, if this then that, it kind of feels like in terms of the protocols that Ghost Gaming have, in terms of like what they're reading, what they're seeing. I think especially on this offensive front to this point. I mean, you look at round 15, 16, like they're still getting executes down for spike plants, giving themselves a chance at some of the rounds that were maybe not necessarily as evenly exchanged in the first blood fights as they would like to, and to be honest, what they were kind of used to from finding in the first half. But I think you're right in terms of like how they're protocoling the mid round. It's been very clean, it's been very decisive, and very regularly it's been the right call in terms of where to go and what to do. So definitely a bit of an advantage, and gotta keep in mind that this is Aussie and Friends map selection. So, you know, this series starts to look a little bit tumultuous here if you're Aussie and Friends coming off this post plant now into a post timeout situation. You know, what can you muster up to try to get this thing back to closer terms?
It's you and me.
Straight up B hit coming in for the first time here as well for Ghost Gaming.
He's gonna find the first. Marceline leads the double tap, but cannot win the 1v1. So it would early 4v4. But that kill contract was supposed to be an immediate entryway towards B. But after losing the first blood and not having Manad as a part of the play, you're stuck. And then that's the worst feeling in the world. Try to backpedal while jumping up the steps to get back in the window. AF able to punish, and it's going to be a 3v4.
Yeah, just none of that cover provided here. Aerial's walked out on C. Cypher Trips still not dealt with, though. That camera could still be popped for that information, but this just might have been the perfect timing for Aerial to thread the needle on this flank. Unchecked so far. Haven't heard that camera being tapped. Now the plant here on C, they're not going to expect this walk up all the way through B.
Cage triggered.
Well, Aerial provides a really good first. And just the space that Ghost Gaming can create in this post plant is immense. They don't expect a second. Oh my goodness. Now you just have to stay alive as long as possible. Delay as long as possible for Aerial. Does get revealed. Paranoia gets caught across though. That's a really good effective one from Keteris. And no one can get over to C. They're completely stuck. Now if you're Keteris, you just have to stay alive. Can you kill the time? Can you get back over to site? One last dark cover. Puts it right on top of the spike. Oh, but just over peaks it. Slandy finds the elim.
Wait.
Time is going to be real tight, Ash. Oh, hold on to your
There's
seats.
a world where she actually gets this right on the like millisecond coming out from Slandy, but man, you would have just thought if you're Kataris, you're kicking yourself a little bit. That timing being so close to being bought. But a huge round necessary here for Aussie and Friends to keep them in the game on Haven for our first map.
Wow. I mean, it does not get tighter than that. And Ghost Gaming, again, continue to give themselves chances in these rounds where they just do not have the numbers. But maybe just a moment where Keteris thinks maybe they already slipped onto site. Maybe I can get a little bit closer to take away the angle, but that decision is punished. Still a full purchase, though, for Ghost Gaming. No problem with the economy there.
Shock just blew a little bit of chip damage on the way out here for Slandy, waiting for the rest of the cavalry. And look at this timing. You've got, again, Aerial looking for these opportunities to just fully thread the needle. Now that's the pullback from the rest of Ghost to clear mid.
Whoa, Vanadis is like, get me out of here. Able to get the double tap up. Keteris able to find one. Aerial, the crossfire deep in towards B. Link to C. Is actually able to put a lot of stress on this defense. And remember that moment right there, because I actually like the idea for Aussie and Friends, knowing that Ghost Gaming have often shown force early but not committed and then wrap back. You're trying to take away mid-map, but what they missed that time is that opening that was present during Garage, leaving now Slandy. to a 1v what feels like impossible situation. Recon will reveal one, but the crossfire setup immediately with Aerial in particular in the corner is the nastiest part of trying to re-enter. You do have one shock dart, good prediction, but it doesn't actually connect. And then, yep, there's the swing out. Easy follow-up Ghost Gaming on map point.
Nice safe post plant being called there by Ghost Gaming, and so many of these mid rounds now having to do with that lurk information that Aerial's able to relay to the rest of the team. Like some of those timings, up C through garage, those are actually just diabolical coming out from the Cypher player. The rest of Ghost responds so well to it, but like you were saying, the idea was good. It was just missing that garage info, and now too many times that Aerial's been able to walk back up. The garage trip will return, of course.
Just immediate consequence correction right there, right?
Yeah.
But the issue here is you don't have knives, so you're on Stingers, one Vandal, and to make matters worse, Miara with Dimensional Drift will connect. Funny being able to gate crash back over as they find their first blood, and then Ghost Gaming immediately hit over towards A, but Slandy is in position, hearing all these footsteps. If you can catch the planter plus one more, could be an opportunity. Clean shots for the first, but this is where the Stinger really, well, I'd say naturally would have a disadvantage, but the Classic gets the job done, and that's now an opening for Aussie and friends to possibly work their way back into the site.
Definitely is. Spikes still has to be planted. Lots of time on the clock at the very least here.
Oh, but you lose Marceline at top. And now you just got the spray down over towards the link. Nowhere to go. And Ghost Gaming, after some heroics in the first round, take control in the second. And it's a 13-8 win